I am a delicate noble lady from a prestigious family but became famous overnight at a palace banquet. If you ask what exactly made me famous, well, when assassins attacked. With a single lift. I held the emperor above my head and was rewarded for saving the emperor. General Masakazu, who came to protect the emperor, was a step slower than me. His eyes were vigilant. Who are you? Before I could answer, I saw an assassinate acting behind him. So, with another lift, I lifted Masakazu. Also up. The second day after returning to the capital. It was the 100 Flowers banquet hosted by the eldest princess. My parents didn't have time to teach me etiquette. They only told me to speak less and act carefully and not do anything improper. I nodded timidly and followed my mother to take a seat nervously. At the banquet, Mrs. Sue at the neighboring table chatted with my mother. This young lady looks unfamiliar. She is my youngest daughter. She has been weak since birth and was raised in the mountains. She just returned to the capital yesterday. She has grown up so much already. Everyone in the capital knows that the youngest daughter of Grand Tutor Meng was born prematurely, and was congenitally deficient and weak and sickly. Moreover, a wise person once calculated her fate, and said she had the appearance of an early death. To protect their youngest daughter and ensure her safe growth, Grand Tutor Meng sent his babbling little daughter to the Valley of the King of Medicine, and begged the King of Medicine to take care of her body. She was only brought back when she reached marriageable age. Mrs. Sue looked at my slender body and asked, "Is your body better now? Are you better?" Before my mother could answer, I covered my lips and coughed lightly. The cough got worse and worse. I almost coughed my lungs out for Mrs. Sue to see. Mrs. Sue immediately changed the topic and chatted awkwardly about the fashionable jewelry at present. Even those ladies who were eager to come and talk also gave up. But my mother looked regretful, wishing she could find some eligible men to marry me off. After returning home, I comforted my mother. Daughter has just returned. I still want to serve you and father for a few years. By the way, I can choose and pick among the men in the capital. My mother sighed. I'm afraid after this 100 Flowers banquet, no high-ranking family's son will be willing to ask for your hand in marriage. I buried my face in my handkerchief. I was almost laughing out loud. I have lived in the mountains for a long time. My parents feel indebted to me, so they let my playful second brother take me out for a stroll every day. The capital is prosperous. The Falling Flower Street at night is extremely lively. But it wasn't long before my playful second brother and I got separated. I wasn't in a hurry either. I walked and strolled with the crowd, eating and looking, on the noisy street. Suddenly someone shouted, "Thief! My money bag!" I slightly turned sideways. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure recklessly pushing through the crowd. Others were either pushed aside or hurriedly tried to avoid. Only I, a delicate young lady like a weak willow, was frightened and stood still in the middle of the road. When that person was about to bump into me, I looked terrified on the surface, but quietly sealed his occupants with my hand. The thief instantly felt numbness in his hands and feet and fell to the ground. And I was weakly spun and knocked aside. Everything was perfect except that instead of falling to the ground as planned, I was pulled into a broad embrace. This person had a very hard chest and firm muscles. His height and physique were those of a person who had practiced martial arts for years. "Miss, are you okay?" I looked up. Oh my. This isn't the highly decorated General Masakazu. Born into a prestigious family, he knows all the high-ranking sons in the capital. I quickly pretended to be a limp dead fish. I pressed my orchid finger on my temple. As soon as I stood up straight by holding his arm, I covered my lips and coughed violently. "Miss, let me take you to the medical clinic." "It's nothing. It's an old illness. It will be better after a while." At this moment, my second brother just came looking for me, looking anxious. He asked if I was injured, and then thanked Masakazu. Masakazu raised his eyebrows. "Brother Chong Bai. Who is this?" "General doesn't know. This is my younger sister." She has been weak since childhood and was raised outside. She just returned to the capital recently. Maya was bumped by a thief just now. It seems her old illness has recurred. Brother Chong ba, I should take her home earlier and find a doctor to take a look. My second brother panicked and looked at me nervously. Old illness? I was at a loss for words. If I cough, I'm afraid I'll scare my second brother. If I don't cough, it doesn't seem to fit my persona. So I simply fainted. The next day, the whole capital spread the news that the sickly daughter of the Ming family was bumped by a thief and fell ill, and couldn't get up. In the yard, I was cracking melon seeds with one hand and lifting a dumbbell with the other. I watched my mother scold my kneeling second brother harshly. I saw Masakazu again at a palace banquet. The emperor invited all officials and their families. I accompanied my parents to enter the palace for the banquet. I met Masakazu at the entrance. He still remembered me and exchanged pleasantries with me. Is Miyu's body better? I gracefully bowed and answered delicately, thanks to the general. I'm fine already. After taking a seat, my mother's eyes lit up and asked me how I knew Masakazu. Mother, General Wei is just being polite. Don't misunderstand. My mother sighed. Yes. Judging from what General Wei just said, it seems he believed the rumors outside and thought you were a sickly person. I felt relieved and watched the singing and dancing at the banquet. Just then, a dancer suddenly drew a soft sword from her waist and attacked the jade steps. On the jade steps was the current emperor. Protect the emperor. As soon as the words were spoken, dozens of black-clothed people fell from the beams. The officials in the hall fled in panic. Screams arose. Masakazu led the guards and fought with the assassins. In the chaos, I ran towards the jade steps. As soon as I stood beside the emperor, the dancer's soft sword slashed over. I quickly thought of a plan. I put my hands under the emperor's armpits and with a gentle lift, I lifted the emperor above my head and moved him, making the dancer miss. Just then, Masakazu shook off the assassins and rushed over. Looking up, his bright big eyes instantly wide and like copper bells. Who on earth are you? Oh my. At this time, he could still suspect me. While he was fighting with the dancer, I handed the emperor over to the guard team. As soon as I turned around, I saw an assassin secretly attacking behind him. General, be careful. I grabbed his arm, gently swung him over my head, and dodged the attack. Masakazu took advantage of the momentum in the air and kicked the assassin away. Raising his eyebrows, he asked me, Miyu is really weak? I smiled gracefully and spoke in a soft voice. Really? My arm is so sore. After the palace banquet, I became famous overnight in the capital. My persona changed from a delicate and sickly young lady to a powerful monster who can move mountains and lift tripods. The rumors spread vividly. It is said that on that day when the emperor was assassinated, I flicked the imperial desk away with one finger and killed 3 or 4 assassins at once. It is also said that with a lift of my slender hand, the emperor spun and jumped in my palm and was unharmed. Also, they said that you saved the hero like a beauty. You slapped a bear to death and saved General Masakazu from dozens of assassins. During the meal, my second brother vividly told the topics of conversation in tea houses and restaurants. My father's beard trembled. My mother sighed. My eldest brother frowned. My second brother talked with relish. My third brother applauded. I was the only one calm at the whole table. In fact, I almost wanted to put my hands on my hips and laugh loudly. Mother, before, the whole capital spread rumors that I was weak and sickly. You sighed all day. Now everyone knows that I am as strong as an ox. So be happy. My mother's sighs were almost cooling down the dishes on the table. How can I be happy? Now you are rumored to be like a shrew. Who would dare to marry you? I didn't care and said, maybe someone likes my type? If no one likes me, it can only be said that they have bad taste. My eldest brother is in the court. My second brother is interested in having fun. My third brother is in the army. I thought it was all jokes at the meal yesterday. Unexpectedly, Today Masakazu really followed my third brother to our home. My third brother has no sense of propriety. Instead of sending someone to call me to the front yard to receive guests, he directly brought the guests here. So when Masakazu came, I was in the yard, lifting a water vat. If there weren't my carefully cultivated water lilies and koi in this vat. When our eyes met, I really almost threw the vat out. I quickly put down the water vat and gracefully bowed. Masakazu's face was slightly stiff in the corner of his mouth, which as he returned the courtesy. Only my straightforward third brother didn't notice anything unusual. He still stupidly said, "In the future, call third brother for such things. Third brother has plenty of strength. How can I let a girl like you do this rough work?" After saying that, he went to pick up the water vat on the ground. He tried once and then again. His face turned red, but he only moved it a little. This is really embarrassing. Hey, this vat is quite heavy. I pulled him aside and whispered, "Why did you really bring him here?" "Of course, to let you take a look. But today it's a coincidence. When I went to the barracks to look for him, he just said that he had something to see you." "Something?" I looked back suspiciously and found that Masakazu was secretly trying to lift the vat. When he saw me looking at him, he wasn't embarrassed. Instead, he kneeled down. Masakazu knelt on one knee and cupped his fists. Just as he was about to speak, my third brother objected. "You kid. I brought you here for my sister to choose. My sister hasn't agreed yet. Are you forcing a marriage here?" But I heard him say, "Chong-hui is mistaken. This bow of mine is too." My third brother shouted, "Don't even think about it. To worship your younger sister as my teacher." The family's hope was dashed. They originally hoped to choose a young general of similar age and the generals in the capital to marry me. However, most of those of suitable age were already married. Those who weren't married were either ugly or had bad character. Only Masakazu was handsome, had a good family background, was highly regarded by the emperor, and had a good reputation. Unfortunately, he has become my disciple. On that day when he said he wanted to worship me as his teacher, I naturally agreed readily. This way, my family wouldn't always think about marrying me off to him. This strength to move mountains and lift tripods is not innate divine power, but the result of internal energy cultivation. General Wei is intelligent. Presumably, achieving great proficiency in internal energy is just around the corner. Masakazu bowed again. "Please, Master, give me guidance." So, for several months, as long as Masakazu was free, he would come to the Ming Mansion to ask for my guidance. After a long time, rumors started again in the capital. It is said that on that day at the palace banquet, the daughter of the Ming family saved the hero like a beauty. Her heroic posture captured the general's heart. This made General Wei so lovesick that he could neither eat nor sleep. He could only come to the Ming Mansion frequently to relieve his love sickness. Some people also said that the dignified general didn't hesitate to be a son-in-law who lies with his wife's family. Nonsense. Masakazu looked at me no differently from looking at his parents. His eyes were so upright and firm that he almost wanted to take care of me in my old age. When my mother heard this, she started sighing again. "What a good young man. Why is he so lacking in sense? You are as beautiful as a flower. He actually just wants to worship you as his teacher?" By the way, since ancient times, teacher-student love. I quickly covered my mother's mouth and continued to cough violently. This time I really almost coughed my lungs out. Not for anything else but because Masakazu was standing behind my mother at this moment. I put on the airs of the teacher and asked in an old-fashioned way, "Disciple, you are here?" Masakazu was holding a paper-wrapped package. He respectfully presented it. "Master, you said last time that you wanted to eat the crispy duck from the west of the city. So I bought a few to show my respect. But there were only 3 left when I bought them. If it's not enough, I'll go again tomorrow. Although I usually eat 4. But I'm on a diet recently. 3 is enough." Masakazu was relieved. Then he asked, "Then tomorrow after I finish court, I'll go to Lee's shop to buy the meat buns you want. I don't know if 10 are enough." Before I could answer, I only heard my mother sigh again, looking at me, and then at him. She wiped her old tears and left. What a sin. My master sent a letter asking me to go to the minister's mansion to do something. This ask was originally for Big Brother. But Big Brother told Master, "Anyway, little Junior's sister is in the capital. Sending her to do it can save a large amount of travel expenses." My stingy master thought about it, and realized it was indeed a way to save money. So this task became mine. Fortunately, it wasn't too troublesome. It was just sneaking into the minister's mansion at night, and looking for an account book related to a murder. Today, Minister Kui is hosting a banquet. The mansion is lively, which is a good opportunity to act. Dressed in black, I lightly tapped my toes and silently landed in the courtyard, avoiding patrols and knocking out guards. I easily sneaked into the study. As Master mentioned in the letter, there is a secret room in Minister Cui's study. All important things are in the secret room. I fumbled around for a long time before finally finding the switch in the dark. After sneaking into the secret room and finding the account book, I was about to close the door again. But when I reached that place, the feel was not quite right. What is this thing? To feel it again. Have you felt enough? In the darkness, a fierce palm line struck head-on. Whoa! Good martial arts. I was worried that the sound of fighting would attract guards, and had no intention of fighting. I just dodged and tried to escape. However, this person seemed to also not want to attract attention. His punches and kicks were restrained and didn't make a loud noise. I instantly understood that this person was a thief here to steal something. Brother, you steal yours and I steal mine. We're not in the same group, but we're in the same boat. Who's in the same boat as you? Little thief. Hand over the thing. Oh, it turns out he is also here to steal this account book. At this moment, there were footsteps outside coming this way. I directly kicked at his vulnerable lower body, especially his private parts. That person got anxious and said harshly, "You. What about me? I used my feet. I didn't use my hands. What are you so anxious about? You. Vulgar words. You are despicable and filthy. You female hooligan." This little thief was tall and big, but had a thin skin. Only this person was wearing a mask on his face. It seemed he was very afraid of being seen. I quickly lifted his mask. I wanted to take advantage of his panic to cover his face and jump out the window and escape. But unexpectedly, when the moonlight by the window swayed, a familiar handsome face appeared in front of me. It was actually Masakazu. As expected. He is my good disciple. Even being a thief, he has an extraordinary tacit understanding with his master. At this time, shouts came from outside. "Go and inform the master. Someone has broken into the study at night." As soon as the words were spoken, Masakazu and I jumped out the window and escaped at the same time. But there was only one window in this study. I grabbed the window frame and pushed him. "I go first." He didn't want to be outdone. "Give me the account book." Seeing that the people outside were about to push the door open, I directly slapped his butt. "Go." Originally, my palm strength was extraordinary. Using a few more layers of strength, I actually slapped him several feet away from the window. I lightly jumped and flew onto the roof. Masakazu, who was lying on the ground, glared at me viciously. Then looking behind him, he had to quickly jump over the wall and escape while touching his butt. "Little fellow. So disrespectful. As your teacher, I'll spank your little butt." The next day, Masakazu came with an injury. I pretended not to know and asked, "Disciple, why are you walking so strangely?" Masakazu stood up straight to cover up and cough lightly. "Yesterday at Minister Cui's banquet, I drank a few more cups at the banquet. When I went out, I fell on the steps. It's nothing serious." I showed concern on my face but snorted in my heart. This kid is also somewhat clever. Pretending to be drunk and falling can not only get rid of the suspicion of breaking into the study privately last night, but also cover up the injury on his butt. Only his butt looked ordinary. But the feel when I slapped it last night was firm and perky. Quite nice to touch. Master. What are you looking at? I quickly came to my senses and started teaching. Your butt is injured. Today we'll practice something else. Masakazu looked at me quietly and suddenly asked, how did Master know that I was injured on my butt? Didn't I seem to have mentioned it just now? I was silent for a moment. Didn't you mention it? I suddenly slapped his butt hard. That's why I'm your teacher. Teacher me has sharp eyes. Masakazu grimaced in pain and directly lay on the ground. That's good. When his butt hurts, his mind won't be so sharp. So he won't accidentally figure it out. Little sister. It's lively on the street today. Second brother will take you to play? I was calculating the time when Masakazu would come. So I was waiting for him in the yard. Unexpectedly, my well-dressed second brother came hurriedly to ask me to go out and play. Ningen Street is quite lively every day. What's so fun? Second brother opened his folding fan in his hand. He was truly handsome and charming. You don't know this, right? Today, there is a beauty pageant. There are so many beautiful women gathered. It's even better than 100 flowers. I rolled my eyes. No wonder you look a bit lewd today. Saliva is almost flowing out. What are you saying about your brother? By the way, I heard that the handsome scholar who has charmed countless young girls will also come and read a poem for the beauty who wins the title. Don't you want to see this famous and handsome scholar in the Jianghu? Handsome scholar? That's really an old acquaintance. Let's go. But just as I stood up, Masakazu came. Master. Where are you going? Second brother was rarely honest. She wants to see that handsome. I quickly covered second brother's mouth and smiled. Second brother said that there is a beauty pageant today. I want to see which beautiful lady will win the title. Masakazu nodded. Then I'll come again tomorrow. I was relieved. Okay. Unexpectedly, second brother hooked his arm around him and walked out while putting his arm on his shoulder. Pretentious. Let's go see the beauties together. There were indeed many beautiful women gathered. But that handsome scholar was just a pretty boy. Little sister. Look at that white-clothed scholar on the hideout. His face is as white as jade. He is as graceful as a pine. He is suave and charming. Charming. In short. In one word. Handsome. Masakazu looked up and then looked down at me. Do you like this kind of person? The dog I raised in the Valley of the King of Medicine is even prettier than him. I found an excuse to leave. I'll go to that shop over there and choose a hairpin. You guys watch first. In fact, I slipped into an alley and found an abandoned house to change my clothes. The area below the flower-full tower was filled with people and cheers rose one after another. The handsome scholar on the hideout rose into the air. He quickly wrote on the unfolded blank long scroll. His posture was as graceful as an immortal descending from the sky. He wasn't touched by worldly affairs but had a majestic aura as if brandishing a sword to capture the moon and breaking waves to pick pearls. Everyone was amazed and held their breath, not daring to disturb. Just when the handsome scholar lifted the last stroke, a purple figure burst out of the air. The sword light was stern and directly aimed at the long scroll. In an instant, the masterpiece that hadn't been revealed yet was shattered into pieces of paper and fell down from a height like white paper and flying flowers. The smile on the handsome scholar's face froze. But he still had to maintain a gentlemanly demeanor in front of everyone. He suppressed his anger and asked, "What does the lady intend to do?" I raised my sword and went forward. "Today I came specially to beat you up. You heartless man." At this time, the handsome scholar finally saw the mask on my face and exclaimed, "It's you. You are Kwang Luz." "That's right. Today I will beat you to death on behalf of senior sister. She is waiting for you bitterly in the Valley of the King of Medicine. But you are here indulging in pleasure. You scoundrel. I'll cripple you." Beating him to death was impossible. After I beat his pretty face into a pig's head, I also gave a hard kick to his private parts. After kicking him, I slipped away. I went back to the abandoned house in the alley and was about to change back into the clothes I wore when I went out. But just as I took off my top, I sensed someone behind me. Who? I threw a hidden weapon behind me instinctively. Turning my head, I saw Masakazu staring at me with wide eyes. Look again and I'll dig out your eyes. Masakazu came to his senses and quickly turned around. His ears were so red that they were about to bleed. He stammered and asked, How? How could it be you? I changed my clothes and walked around in front of him, looking directly into his eyes. What did you see just now? Masakazu shifted his gaze. His neck also started to turn red. I didn't mean to offend. Take off. What? I raised my eyebrows and glanced at his broad shoulders and narrow waist and then moved back to his firm chest. I said matter-of-factly, Let me see yours. 11. I thought Masakazu was a thin-skinned person. I didn't expect that he would take off his clothes without hesitation. After I said that sentence, he was only briefly stunned. Then he looked back into my eyes and started taking off his clothes one by one. And every time he took off one piece, he took a step forward. Then he took off another piece and took another step closer. That momentum directly stunned me. Wait. Why are you so close to me? Masakazu was already flushed all over but his shyness and said, I'm afraid you can't see clearly. I'm not blind. It doesn't matter if you are blind. He suddenly grabbed my hand. His palm was so nervous that it was all sweaty. But his eyebrows and eyes were brightened and yielding. You can touch it. Oh my God. What on earth happened? From birth until now, I have never been as helpless as I am at this moment. Masakazu, you misunderstood. I'm not the kind of person you think. I originally meant that since you saw mine, I'll see yours, and then we'll be even. I didn't mean to take advantage of you. He looked upright and serious. But I want to take advantage of you. What? Is he crazy or am I deaf? Since entering this door, how come his usually quiet little mouth has become like he's possessed and can't stop spouting such shameless words? As I expected. In the next sentence, he was even more outrageous. Ming Nianan. I want to marry you. Masakazu might really be crazy. He really came to the Ning mansion every day. He even didn't hesitate to clamor about being a son-in-law who lives with his wife's family. Even third brother thought there was something seriously wrong with him. Is Masakazu's brain broken? He just told mother that there are many men in his family. If mother can't bear to part with you, he is willing to be a son-in-law who lives with the Ming mansion. I blinked and asked, are there really a lot of men in his family? Third brother helplessly stroked his forehead. Is this the point? Sister, the key is that our family doesn't lack men either. Lack? Who said we don't lack? Mother came with her prospective son-in-law. Her eyes and eyebrows were full of smiles. The first time I saw Aylin, I felt a special connection. Now thinking about it, it really is that if you're not a family, you don't enter the same door. Hearing that affectionate, Aylin, I almost ate the dumbbell in my hand on the spot. I quickly dragged Masakazu and threw him into the room. I closed the door to block mother's eager gaze. But as soon as I turned around, I bumped into his hard chest. Masakazu said seriously, you can do anything you want to me. Huh? This sounds strange. What can I do to you? You want to see my body before? I'll show it to you today too. I'm crazy. How can this person say such shameless words with a serious face? Masakazu, tell me the truth. Are you really possessed or are you teasing me? But he seriously started taking off his clothes. I panicked and tightened my collar. Even if you show me, I won't show you. Apart from being attracted to my body, I really can't think of why he is so actively being a rogue. I'm not teasing you. His strong and powerful arm passed by the side of my ear and pressed against the door behind me. His strong body approached me. His upright eyebrows and eyes looked at me. Masakazu seriously and properly exuded that damn charm. I'm just trying to please you. I want you to like me. Ah? Because I like you. Masakazo said that I had saved him. On the battlefield at the border. At that time, the army he led was ambushed by the enemy. Seeing that they were about to be completely annihilated, I descended from the sky and tore open a gap in the enemy's encirclement for them. Eventually, they turned defeat into victory. I don't remember this. This is not a lie. Although Lingyan Pavilion is a Zhonghu sect, it has a patriotic heart. I have also been sent by my master many times to go to the border to fight the enemy. But every time I come and go in a hurry and don't remember saving him. I remember. You were wearing the mask you wore when you went to Huamanlu that day. But that mask is specially made by Lingyan Pavilion. Almost every disciple in the sect has one. Lingyan Pavilion is on Lingyan Peak. The Valley of the King of Medicine is at the foot of Lingyan Peak. Although I am from the Valley of the King of Medicine, due to my playful nature when I was young, I was coincidentally noticed by the pavilion master of Lingyan Pavilion and accepted as a disciple. So, the reason why the handsome scholar was able to recognize me only by the mask that day was just because he had only seen me wearing that mask in the Valley of the King of Medicine. Everyone has one? He grabbed my arm. The person you met that day was probably my senior sister Xian. In the sect. She likes to wear purple. Hearing this, I understood. He had indeed mistaken the person. The person you met was probably my senior sister's Eon. In the sect. She likes to wear purple. Even the purple dress I wore at Huamanlu was given to me by her before I went down the mountain to urge me to practice hard after returning to the capital. Masakazo took a step back in disbelief. After a moment of silence, he said, "You're lying to me." However, although he insisted that I had lied to him, in the next moment, he picked up his clothes from the ground and rushed out the door. Third brother stood in the yard in astonishment, pointing at him and then at me. It took him a long time to stammer and say, "Sister, did you take advantage of him?" I stood by the door in a lost way, put my palm against my heart, and smiled faintly, almost. Fortunately, since that day, Masakazo has never come again. But I habitually walked to the yard and glanced at the corridor. Second brother teased and asked who I was waiting for. I said impatiently that I wasn't waiting for anyone. Little sister, if you're feeling depressed, go to Nanfeng Pavilion to listen to some tunes. Second brother, I'm a proper girl. Since I returned, the reputation of the daughter of the Meng family has been extremely prominent in the capital. If I step into Nanfeng Pavilion today, it will definitely spread all over the capital tomorrow. Unexpectedly, mother came from behind. Go. As long as you're happy. I picked up my dropped jaw from the ground and incredulously tattled, "Mother." Second brother told me to go to Nanfeng Pavilion. I heard it. Anyway, no one dares to marry you. You can enjoy yourself as you please. When she said this, she started sighing again. It's a pity for that child Masakazu. Yesterday I still dreamed of your grand wedding. He was presenting tea to me. Hearing this, I quickly rushed to Nanfeng Pavilion. Second brother was right. I really should go to Nanfeng Pavilion and call a few handsome men to listen to tunes and find some fun. I must not hear the name Masakazu again today. It's really hearternecting. However, what's even more hearternecting is that I saw Masakazu in Nanfeng Pavilion. To be exact, when a handsome man was half exposing his shoulder and trying to hook up with me, Masakazu kicked open the door and stood at the door menacingly with a sword in his hand. He looked around and finally fixed his gaze on me. His eyes were directly red and with anger. The handsome man beside me trembled and put on his clothes. Whispering, he asked me, "This is your husband, right?" No. The handsome man was relieved and then exposed his shoulder again. However, in the next moment, a long sword flew through the air. It grazed the handsome man's shoulder and directly inserted into the wooden screen behind him. The handsome man cried and pulled on his clothes. Then he opened the window and jumped down using both hands and feet. The others looked at each other. Then looking at Masakazu blocking the door who seemed ready to eat someone, they all sensibly jumped out of the window. "Hey! At least leave one. I paid for it. However, no one paid attention to me. Only Masakazu came over. He looked like he wanted to devour me. Why are you still in the capital? Masakazu sneered. Does my being in the capital hinder your having men on both sides? I sincerely said. You should have gone to Lingyan Peak by now and gone to Lingyan Pavilion to look for my senior sister Xian. He overturned the table and kicked the stool. The room was in a mess. Having nowhere to vent his anger. Meng Nianan. His voice was loud. I was louder than him. Masakazu. You are so disrespectful. I am your teacher. I don't get in your way. I'll leave. I thought that when Masakazu said he would leave, he meant leaving Nanfang Pavilion. However, he left the capital. But he didn't go to Lingyan Pavilion to look for senior sister Xian. Instead, he requested to go to the southwest to suppress the chaos. The southwest was hit by a flood. The flood broke the dikes. All the fertile fields were flooded. Before the plague even showed signs, bandits had already started causing chaos. Masakazu's trip was to volunteer to go to the southwest to suppress the bandits. When Mother heard about this, she exclaimed, I heard that the bandits there are fierce. They kill people and seize food, plunder wealth, and take women. They do all kinds of evil. Isn't Masakazu's trip extremely dangerous? The chopsticks in my hand paused. Third brother said, those bandits even dare to kill local officials. Batch after batch of troops sent to suppress the bandits have all been buried there. Although Masakazu has long been on the battlefield, the southwest is different from the north. The terrain is easy to defend but difficult to attack. It's a tough nut to crack. I silently lowered my head and ate my food without saying a word. Second brother looked at me and loudly said, only seeking to die for the country on the battlefield. Why should one be wrapped in horse leather when returning? I threw down my bowl and hurried back to my room. I picked up my sword and left. Mother chased after me and asked where I was going. I was on horseback and smiled freely. To bring you a son-in-law who lives with his wife's family. When I found Masakazu, his armor was tattered. There was a broken arrow in his chest. Blood dripped into the mud under his feet along the corner of his clothes. The knife wound on his left leg was so deep that the bone could be seen. But he still held his sword and his back was straight. Soldiers! Charge! As soon as the general's order was given, the shouts shook the sky. But suddenly a fire bomb exploded in front, directly blowing up the bandits on the mountainside. As the smoke cleared, a girl in red stood facing the wind. The bandit leader shouted, "Who are you?" I drew my sword and faced him. The sword aura was awe-inspiring, someone who wants your life. As soon as the words were spoken, I charged into the bandits' ranks with a fierce momentum. Wherever I went, there was bloodshed and screams. I opened a bloody path for the army behind me. The bandit on the mountain shouted, "Throw stones." Big stones rolled down from the mountain, and scattered the army's formation attacking the mountain. The bandit leader was proud. Wumu Mountain is easy to defend but difficult to attack. Anyone who wants to come up must die at the foot of the mountain. A soldier shouted, "General! General! Are you okay?" I suddenly turned around and found that the seriously injured Masakazu behind me couldn't dodge in time and was injured on the shoulder by a stone. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with his thumb, lifted his eyelids and looked over. Across the chaos of war, our eyes met. "It's nothing." This was clearly a response to that soldier. But it seemed to be comforting me through the smoke of war. I saw him grit his teeth. The veins on the back of his hand bulged. He stubbornly stood up staggeringly while supporting himself with his sword. I should have been relieved. But instead, anger rose in my heart. I turned around and glared fiercely at the bandit leader. "How dare you hurt my man? You're tired of living." The smiles on the bandits' faces froze. They all stared wide-eyed in disbelief as I lifted a big stone with my bare hands and threw it out forcefully. 1 stone. 2 stones. The stones that had fallen rolled back up. Wumu Mountain is easy to defend, but difficult to attack. I'll attack it for you today. Die on the mountain. The bandit leader was not a good person at all. He actually turned around and was about to run up the mountain. I lightly tapped my toes and leapt up. I drew out the iron whip wrapped around my waist in mitre. The end of the iron whip was hanging with an arrow tip. Like a sharp arrow with a long tail. It pierced through his back of the neck. When I killed the bandit leader and turned around to look for Masakazu, the remaining bandits had been wiped out by the remnants of his troops. Masakazu supported himself with his sword and watched me approach. Suddenly, he lost his strength. His left knee touched the ground. But his eyes were looking straight at me as he fell to the side. Hey! Don't die. I held his head and slapped his face hard. Wake up. Wake up. He couldn't die. I still had a lot to say to him. After a while, Masakazu's tightly closed eyes opened impatiently. Meng Nianan. Stop slapping. My face is going to be swollen. Just now. Thinking he was going to die, I used a little force in a hurry. Without delay, I picked him up by the waist and was in a hurry to find a military doctor. Masakazu suddenly said, "Besides you, is there anyone else in Lingyan Pavilion who uses a whip?" No. He smiled and said to himself, "It's really you." I looked down at him and wondered if he had hit his head and become stupid just now. What are you talking about? I mean, you look really beautiful in red. I raised my eyebrows and smiled brightly. Fool. This is a wedding dress. Chmeng Nianan, use this battle as a betrothal gift to welcome you, Masakazu, into my mansion. Masakazu said that the person who had saved him on the battlefield was me. Because the woman in purple that day used a long whip made of iron chains. The sound of the long whip swinging through the air echoed in the desert. Like a howling wind. It had been ringing in his heart for many years. On the day of the beauty pageant. Although you didn't use a whip, your moves and postures had already been engraved in my dreams. At a glance, I could recognize you. No wonder he used to be respectful to me, and call me master all the time. But that day he was bold and unrestrained. He even dared to call me by my full name. I sighed. As the ancients said, a life-saving grace should be repaid with one's body. I didn't expect that my husband would be obtained in this way. It seems that I still need to do more good deeds in the future to have a good marriage. Masakazu frowned and said coldly, "In the future? You already have me. Who else are you thinking about?" I deliberately teased him. I like you now. But it doesn't mean I will like you in the future. If you become ugly or old in the future, or if you annoy me, I will naturally find a new love. I was just saying this casually, but I didn't expect him to take it seriously. On the day he came to propose marriage to the Meng mansion, he presented the sword that had accompanied him in battles to me in front of my parents. Masakazu swears on this sword. In this life, there is only Nianan, hand in hand for 100 years. I will never betray you in this life. Hearing this, my father was very satisfied with his son-in-law. My mother was moved to tears. But in fact, he turned around and looked at me affectionately. Leaning close to my ear, he whispered, "If you dare to find a new love in the future, either you use the sword to kill me, or I use the sword to kill that bastard." On our wedding day, it was very lively. People from the Valley of the King of Medicine and Lingyan Pavilion all came. The two masters guzzled each other at the wine table, complaining about each other. My good disciple should have traveled around practicing medicine and saving lives. But you tricked her into going with you to kill people. You scoundrel. She is a natural martial arts prodigy. Such a good seedling is tied up by you in the Valley of the King of Medicine, all day taking care of those flowers and plants. It's simply a waste. Because of you, she runs up the mountain all day. Her calves have become thicker. If you didn't only let her out for half a day every day, she would have inherited my mantle long ago. Eldest brother pulled the master of the Valley of the King of Medicine. Second brother pulled the master of Lingyan Pavilion. Third brother squeezed in the middle, afraid that the two would end up fighting. The senior brothers pulled Masakazu to compare martial arts. The senior sisters gathered around me and talked. Senior sister Xian recalled, "That should have been in the 10th year of Yuan Feng. Right? We were sent by our master to go to the battlefield together. On the way, you soiled your clothes because of menstruation. So I lent you the extra set I brought. Now that you mention it, it seems there was such a thing. Senior sister Sion shook her head and joked, "It's a pity. If your handsome husband's eyesight were a bit worse, he would have a relationship with me." Senior sister Mengyun looked back at Masakazu not far away. Satisfied, she recited a poem, broad shoulders, narrow waist, and a perky butt, handsome face and high martial arts skills, good family background and knowledge. I wonder if he has a brother? I smiled and looked at Masakazu. It seemed that he was really good in every way. Just looking at him like this made my heart itch and feel warm. No one else could compare. At this time, Masakazu seemed to sense it and looked over. Among the flickering lights and the intoxicating aroma of wine, love is mesmerizing. It's like a glance that lasts for 10,000 years. After marriage, Mother became more and more satisfied with this son-in-law who lives with his wife's family but more and more dissatisfied with me. Did you quarrel with Masakazu again? I was both angry and amused. Mother, what do you mean I'm quarreling? It sounds as if I'm being unreasonable all day. Mother gave me a blank look and snorted. It's only because Masakazu indulges you. If you weren't my own daughter, I would want to scold you. To avoid being scolded. I could only tell her that Masakazu had been busy in the barracks recently and couldn't come home. It wasn't that the couple was having problems. Oh, how can the barracks be as good as home? The food and living conditions are not good. By the way, I'll ask the kitchen to make some meals. You can take them to him. So, when I came to the barracks carrying a food box, I heard gossip about me. Just after the martial arts competition in the drill ground ended, someone shouted, "General, you have time today. Let's go to see Izyan Tower for a drink together." Masakazu said with a smile, "You guys go. Put it on my tab. General, come along and have some fun." Another person laughed and teased, "Our general is a married man. He has to go home and coax his wife. You single guy knows nothing." The surrounding soldiers laughed. "When it comes to being henpecked, our general way is number one in the capital." A rough voice muttered, "In our village, if a woman meddle less too much, a few beatings will make her obedient. But our general's wife has delicate skin. The general definitely can't bear two." The delicate-skinned general's wife, casually picked up a dumbbell on the ground and threw it out. Coincidentally, it landed by that person's feet. That person exclaimed. A large group of people turned their heads to look. "Sorry. My hand slipped." I smiled gracefully. "But, you just said, beat to a few times?" When Masakazu saw me, his eyes were shining. He trotted over happily. "Madame, you came to find me?" I sneered. "Naturally. I came to make my reputation as a henpecked wife come true." Later, I found out that Masakazu was used to using me as an excuse. When others invited him to drink and have fun with women, he said, "My family is very strict. I dare not touch any of that." When others invited him to eat, he said, "My wife has already prepared the meal." When others gave him beautiful women, he directly reminded with a smile, "My wife is extremely jealous. If she comes looking for you with a sword tomorrow, I won't be able to stop her." In short, even when his deputy general asked him if he was cold, he would mention, "This pair of knee pads was made by my wife for me." After returning home and closing the door, I took out the iron whip from my waist. "Masakazu, you're asking for a beating." But Masakazu grabbed the other end of the whip and pulled me to the bed. His thin lips spotted slightly. "Please, madam, give me your instruction."